Hello, I'm Jacob and you are watching the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. Today I want to talk to you about a subject that I've touched on in the past, which is police brutality. And so to give you a little context, I'm prior military, did combat deployment as an infantryman, did all kinds of stuff. I got a degree in Homeland Security, a bachelor's degree, and obviously that's criminal justice in case somebody didn't know. But through my time in college, I had to fight the educational system because it was so biased, so driven towards indoctrination. And through many of my research papers and essays, I probably would have been labeled anti-police. I am certainly in support of minimal government to the point of being anti-government. So that's where I'm at. Recently, there was another police shooting. And, you know, basically what the message would be, no, Benjamin, would be the same as what it's always been. And that is simply that there are good cops and there are bad cops. And I'm probably more against bad cops than just about anybody else. However, the line between a good cop and a bad cop to the untrained can be easily blurred because not only do people have no experience with violent confrontation, but they also have no training in how to look for Benjamin? How to look for whether or not someone's being violent or going to grab a weapon or a firearm. So in this most recent instance, you know, a guy was resisting arrest with multiple officers. For whatever reason, he made it past the officers and to his vehicle. And when he opened the door to his vehicle, he was shot and killed. He was shot 7 times and killed. Now, if you're going to resist arrest, and let me say that every law in America is backed by the use of deadly force. So if you jaywalk and you are caught and you refuse to pay your fine or cooperate with the police or whatever else, the ultimate result will be they will kill you. So no matter how small the infraction, ultimately the result for non-compliance is death or in prison. You know, if you're not going to go to prison, they're going to kill you. And so if you have a problem with that, the police are partially to blame. There cannot be any question of that. You know, there's the doctrine of lesser magistrates. You should look that up. If you are anti-police, you have an obligation to become a police officer. Because like the doctrine of the lesser magistrates will show you, it becomes the obligation of the lowest level of enforcement to do what's right, because ultimately the power from above is used through the guys at the bottom. If the guys at the bottom will not uphold illegal law from above, then illegal law cannot exist. So the police officers certainly have a role to play in this, but ultimately what you need to be looking at is your politicians and your judicial system, which is specifically designed to promote recidivism, and specifically designed to create lifelong criminals. However, I just took 4.5 minutes to tell you what this video is not about. What this video is about is my general answer to people who don't understand the lawful use of force or why an officer didn't have other means to subdue someone in a justified use of lawful force is to get training. You get semunitions, you learn what it's like to shoot back and forth in a high stress environment, and you get a small taste of how all of these things work. And if you get good force on force training, even if you are already well trained, you will accidentally shoot innocent people. You will, as a guarantee, and every single law enforcement officer and military person who has received force on force training has shot innocents. Every single one has had even decent training. Killing the innocent person. And every single person has also made the wrong decisions in these force and force scenarios and gotten killed. So when the game that you're playing, when the trophy at the end of the tunnel is life or death, the odds are pretty high. The need for excellent training is very high, and the chance of mistakes are very high. And people never understand that, especially if they have no training. However, what I'm here to tell you is that no matter how much training you get, not only for the law enforcement officers, but also for the random Joe who wants to go get training, understand these things better, become a better person, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. Knowledge does not equal wisdom. And I was just talking to people who are law enforcement and who are trained in this easily justifiable use of deadly force, just blatantly obvious use of deadly force, and they can't understand it. They know how long it takes for someone to grab a gun and kill an officer. They know in how large of an area you have, what size safety bubble you have with your firearm, and simple things like the 21-foot rule, which, by the way, you can know the 21-foot rule and not understand it. Again, it's knowledge versus wisdom, and 90% of the time you see people talk about the 21-foot rule, they're getting the wrong message from it. But no matter how many times you drill these things and even try and fail at these things, as a soldier, I can't tell you how many Joes I personally put through training over and over and over and over and over again. They just didn't get it. Either they couldn't get it because they didn't have the capacity to understand it, or they didn't get it because they never cared about it in the first place and they weren't willing to apply it. That is going to happen in law enforcement, but sadly it's going to happen everywhere. And it's going to happen in the judicial system. And at the end of the day, what the message is that, oddly, the same people who believe if there's a revolution that 40 to 60% of the military would defect because they're really good people and really smart, and who all will regularly say, oh, I'd pump that MFer with lead if he ever did this to me or that to me or the other thing, are usually the first people to cast a stone at law enforcement. And again, if law enforcement deserves stone casting, sign me up. They need out. Unprofessional law enforcement is the worst thing that can happen to a society, to a sovereignty, to a police department, and to a neighborhood, to anything. All right? And it needs to be cleaned up in-house. The people who hate crooked cops the most should be cops. But, the people that are killed in an unjustified killing, you don't know their names. Like Kelly Thomas, a schizophrenic guy who sat and cried for his dad on his face for like 30 or 40 minutes with like 6 cops on top of him. And the cops are just torturing him and killed him. And he didn't die of a drug overdose on the ground because he's cracked out. He died because they broke the bones in his face and he choked to death on his own blood. And there's no excuse for this kind of crazy stuff, but you've probably never heard of that. Probably never heard of Kelly Thomas. You've probably never heard of countless unjustified police killings because they're not being publicized in front of you. There's no agenda. And you know what's even more sad is the same freaking stupid, ignorant people, which stupid and ignorant are different things. Look it up. These same people who get all wrapped around the axle about these police shootings will justify Waco and Ruby Ridge. At the end of the day, guys, everybody and their mother will tell you, just talk to your neighbor. You're more alike than you are different if you just open up. No, if you have a freaking brain, you have nothing in common with your neighbor, chances are. People are freaking stupid. Stupid. And if you have faith in people, you will be let down. Bottom line. There you go. There's 10 minutes of law enforcement discussion. I wanted to do knife stuff, but I ran out of time while Benjamin was napping, and I've got to watch him today. So that's the way it goes. I guess let me know what you think in the comment section below. This video will probably have many more comments than usual that I'm just not going to reply to because it's just not worth my time. The people who have the most vehement opinions on this subject are the people with the least experience who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And it's a waste of my time and anybody's time to try and make them see, sadly, whether they're trained or not. There you go.